Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, and if that was not the usual bubbly, excited, energetic welcome, that's because I'm quite terrified right now. So the reason why I'm terrified this morning is that in 25 minutes, I'm having my second ever conversation in Mandarin Chinese, and I'm filming it for this channel because I'm documenting the whole journey of going from, zero in Mandarin Chinese. I've been doing that for a while on this channel, but more recently we've got this really cool series where now I'm trying to go from a place where I have learned a lot of Chinese. I've, been doing this for a while, but I can't speak clearly or confidently. I don't even really know if I can because I haven't done it. And so we're documenting that journey, going to a place of being a comfortable, confident speaker of Mandarin. So I think that there's no question the fact that I'm going to be filming this incredibly vulnerable, scary moment certainly makes the anxiety a lot higher. But nevertheless, this is the whole point of why I'm documenting this, right? I want to capture the real thing. And this anxiety, this worry, this fear that I'm feeling right now, I think is the exact same thing at its core, in its essence, as what most of us probably feel when we first start taking those steps to speaking in a new language. And so in this video, I want to do two things. Sorry, I'm just like, I can't believe that I'm doing this in 25 minutes or 23 now. I would like to first just talk about a few thoughts I've had over the last few days preparing for this conversation and how I have been trying to mitigate the fear or overcome this anxiety about having this conversation. And secondly, I'd like to just share a few thoughts that might help you and me, help all of us, just sort of think about this a bit differently and see that maybe we don't need to be so worried. And I thought that the best moment to give you that message is when I myself right now am feeling that worried. So without further ado, let's just jump in and talk about the first and really the only solution you actually need to overcome your fear of speaking in a foreign language. Oh yeah, coffee, there we go. Okay, sorry, I know that's not a good solution. This is what you need. Oh yeah, I got a nice Chianti here, like this, you're set. Sorry, I know. Okay, when I get nervous, I hide behind humor. Okay, but now let's actually jump into the topic. Okay, so one thing I've been thinking about over the last few days is that, naturally, a lot of times this anxiety comes from probably whatever your weakest skills are in a language. And so if you're a beginner and if you're somebody who's following the approach of sort of speak from day one or speak really early, the trouble is that you don't really have any strong skills or strong points in the language. So I think that's quite difficult to really address. And I think that with that approach, part of the point, I guess, is that you're just trying to, go in feet first and overcome that fear earlier on. I don't really know that there's much you can do at that point, except for maybe acknowledging the logical points I'm going to give at the end of this video. But I think for those of us who are more sort of input-based learners or people who study the language for quite some time and really try to acquire a lot of vocabulary, try to internalize basic grammatical structures, and get as far as we can before we really start emphasizing speaking, I think there are more things that we can do. And I think that for people like that, myself included, oftentimes it's the vocabulary, right? I think we get to a point where, at a certain point, you can say things, right? You can construct sentences, even if they're not correct necessarily. You can at least make sentences that a native speaker will understand. But in my experience and talking to other people and working with students in the past, it's the vocabulary that I think really gets people nervous, because at the end of the day, if you don't have the words, it's pretty hard to express your point. And so one thing that I've found, and that's partly why I designed this method I've been describing the way that I did, is that really acquiring a decent amount of key vocabulary to a certain subject matter, and then coming into a discussion that you know is going to be broadly about that topic, that you know you have at least got some keywords to get you through that conversation, to make some core points in the discussion. I think that really helps to reduce this anxiety. Because even now, one thing that actually helps me right now, one thing that's making me a lot less nervous and less anxious, is that I've learned words for this conversation. We're going to be talking about, habits and lifestyle and routines, and I've gone through the transcript, right? I transcribed the podcast episode. If you haven't seen that, check out the whole playlist here. I'll link it in the description as well. But I've transcribed it. I've listened to it a bunch. I wrote my Journaly post. I, learned a bunch of those words in Scritter. I've put in the work to at least learn a lot of words that will be useful in this conversation. And I've no doubt that some of those words, even though I've seen them, I've studied them, I flashcarded them, I'm sure some of them will just not come to me. But there are some really key words like 建立习惯, right? To build habits. That's locked in. I've got it. That's not going anywhere. That's like the most key thing about what we're going to be discussing, right? And there's a few examples like that. There are these really key words that I know I've learned, and that really helps. So I think that's one point. Of course, if your weakest thing is grammar, if you're just really struggling to construct sentences, then that might be the thing to focus on. But like I said, I think for a lot of people, when you get to this moment, even as we get more and more advanced, it's always the vocabulary that I think that seems to give us this anxiety. That's just my thought. I'm kind of thinking out loud in this video, so please feel free to contribute your own thoughts in the comments. But that's why I like this method, or any kind of method that revolves around coming into a slightly controlled environment where you know the topic ahead of time and you've got some words and phrases that you can use. I think that really helps us to overcome the anxiety, because I do think, and this is the second, thought I've been having, I do think that largely this anxiety and this fear of speaking, it is mostly up here, right? It's mostly in our heads. And a lot of it it's just that. It's not that we don't actually have enough words to sort of express ourselves, or we just lack the experience, I think, in getting through conversations and expressing ourselves. And so that's why I think that doing things like this, that just help us to overcome the anxiety, help us get that experience, take those first steps, I think that's really valuable. And again, coffee. And I guess that leads me kind of nicely into a few closing thoughts, which is that at the end of the day, we really don't need to be so worried, right? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Unless you're doing something really, really important, or some kind of business meeting or things, that's a bit different, in which case I would still suggest doing this method or something like this and getting this practice before you go into those critical situations. But I think for a lot of us, for a lot of independent learners, people watching this channel, what's the worst that can happen? In my case, I'm going to be speaking with Joyce. She's a wonderful, just lovely person. She's so kind, so pleasant to listen to and to talk to. She knows that I'm a learner. She's going to be understanding of that. What's the worst that can happen? Maybe I stumble, maybe I get stuck here and there. But like I said, I've got some words, I'm coming in prepared. I mean, I may feel unprepared, but I've been learning this language for 2 years now. This whole journey has been preparation for this moment and every one after this. So I am prepared. And at the end of the day, this should be fun. And however good or bad this ends up being in terms of my ability to express myself, there's no question that this experience that I'm going to have in very few minutes from now, it will make me better at Mandarin Chinese. And it's a necessary step. It makes me think about, there was a saying about everybody has 1,000 bad drawings inside of them, and So the first thing you have to do is just get all of your bad drawings out if you want to be a good painter or a good artist or a good illustrator. I think about the same thing with languages, you know, no matter how much you study or prepare, we all have a certain number of just bad conversations inside of us where we're just gonna struggle. So this is all part of just getting those out. And with that, I will leave you, and I think I will, instead of cramming words and desperately preparing these last 10 minutes, I think I will just reflect, relax, drink the rest of my coffee, and try to go and have a good time. So I'll wish you a wonderful day of learning languages. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.